Hey everyone, how's it going? As you know, I'm always raving on about the DJI mics, and today I'm going to give you a beginner's guide how to get them out of the box, how to get it started, and how to make it sound as good as possible. So let's get into it. So as soon as you receive the DJI mics, you should receive them in this box. This is the battery box, and it also should come with this pouch with a few other accessories in there. I'm going to run through what's in here in a sec. So as soon as you open the box, you should have two microphones, a receiver, a horseshoe clip for your camera, an adapter for your iPhone, and the USB-C adapter for Android. And in the bag, there should be two dead cats, a USB-C wire, and an audio interface wire. To get started, you might want to charge the battery box, which can be charged from the USB-C here, just to make sure your battery is fully charged for first time use. Once you've done that, as soon as you open the box, everything should sync. And this is the amazing thing about these microphones. You don't need to link them manually or anything. They should just sync up automatically. And you can tell what's connected to the receiver, which is displayed here. This is the left, or number one. And this is the right, number two. The top row shows the battery and shows that it's charging. If you have a little less charge in the battery, it should show on there. And underneath it shows the time you have left to record on the internal storage inside the microphones. You can tell that they're synced up from this green light here. If this was flashing, it would mean it's looking for the receiver to sync up to. And you can normally tell this, but if I was to turn off the receiver right now, that one's flashing. And this one will probably start flashing as well. So see, they're both flashing, they're both looking for a receiver. You can turn the microphones on and off manually by this little button here on the side. So if I hold that down, the microphone should vibrate, and now it's turned off. If I hold it down again, it should vibrate and the microphone turns back on. And the same with the receiver, it's got a power switch here on the side. This won't vibrate though, but you can obviously see when it comes on from the screen. Depending on what you want to plug the receiver to, you can slot these in the back. So let's just say I'm using a standard camera here. I'm going to take this out and flip this out from the bottom, or slot this in here. It slides into the back, and now I can plug this into the bottom of my camera. So just looking at the microphones now, you have a power button here on the side just to turn that on and off. You have a USB-C cable here, so you can take off what you've recorded internally. You have a record button on the side here, and then a link button here on the side. You also have a great clip on the back, super strong for clipping onto your top. And another great thing you have is this little magnet that you can pull off and put onto your t-shirt or so. So when you're recording, rather than having this clipped over the top, you just basically have this little magnet on the back. It's a pretty strong magnet as well. On the top here, you have the built-in microphone. And I think the microphone on these things is just great quality. So I normally don't really use a lav mic, but if you was to use one, you could plug it in here and run it up your t-shirt so that, you know, obviously this can be clipped on in your pocket and you can run it up. But I actually just record straight into these things. I normally don't really like having wires running around and stuff, although I do have a pair of lav mics and I know that there is times where I do need them. But as I mentioned, this microphone here is amazing. And if it's a really windy day and I want to use the dead cat, can just get that. And as you can see, there's some grooves under the dead cat, and here around the side there's these little clips here. You basically just put this in and give it a little twist, and there you go, it's locked on top. This is great, it really does work for blocking out a lot of the wind. Now let's run through some of the settings inside the menu. As I mentioned, everything is now synced up automatically, and I can tell that by the receiver window here. It shows a left microphone, which is number one, and a right microphone, which is number two. So a great thing about the receiver is you can actually control the microphones from the receiver. So if I slide up here over microphone one, as you can see, I've got controls here for microphone one. So if I enable this, it will start recording, and you can see this because on the microphone, it's got a little red dot which shows that the microphone's recording. You can also do this from the actual microphone. You can also then stop recording from this. You can mute the microphone, and you can also format the internal memory from the microphone. If I slide that back down and now slide over to number two, you've got the same settings but for number two. So this is great because you can basically, as I mentioned, control the microphones right from the receiver. If you've got someone on stage, you know, you can control their microphones without having to go up and kind of press their controls on their microphone. If we now slide the microphone down, here you have a really important setting. So right now it's set to stereo. This means that Microphone 1 is recording to the left channel and microphone 2 is recording to the right. So this is really useful because in post, so say someone was saying something and I didn't want to have their microphone speaking at that moment, I could just delete that channel or mute it. The great thing also about recording on stereo is for volumes. So say you have someone on stage and one person's talking quieter than the other, because you have one channel which is just coming from one microphone, you can then drag that person's volume up and then leave the other person speaking at the same volume. What I do in post is then just duplicate the channels and then do either fill left to right or fill right to left. So each one is definitely on each channel and I can control either one rather than leaving them as left and right. Whereas if, for instance, we go into that option and I record onto mono, this basically can record everything onto basically one track, both microphones onto one track. So it's going to be incredibly hard, as I mentioned in post, if someone, if I don't want them saying something, then it's going to be hard to take that out. Basically, everything's recorded on one. In this section, you also have mono with a safety channel. This means it's going to record both microphones to one channel, but the other channel is going to be recorded at a significantly lower volume. This is in case, you're out recording and a train goes past or a car and it creates a very loud sound. You can then bring that down after someone starts talking really loud in one section and everything is overdriven. You can then retrieve that information from the other channel. Personally, I've never really needed to use this. I feel like you should always be recording at minus like 18 or minus 12 about anyway, so you have a lot of headroom in case you get that person that's speaking a bit too loud. So I haven't used this option yet. Also, if you go into stereo here, you can switch around how you want the microphone to be recorded, left or right channel, each one. In the next section here, you have retrieve again. I've never really needed to turn this down, but I haven't had someone recording on very high volume. If you do, then you're probably better off to turn the volume down here rather than through the camera, because if you turn the camera volume down, but the signal going in is really hot, then you're going to get it really overdriven inside the camera, even though the camera volume is quite quiet. I'm not sure if that kind of makes sense, but have a think about it. The signal that's going in, make sure it's not too hot. So you want the signal going in and the camera volume to be quite a good volume. Next, you have headphone volume. I personally would avoid this. You want to be listening to the audio going into the camera, not the audio coming out of the microphone. If you did want to listen, you've got a little headphone slot there. But as I mentioned, I would really just try and listen to what's going into, your interface or whatever you're recording into, rather than listening straight from this thing. The only time I would use this is if I was recording straight into the microphone and I wanted to hear what was going into the microphone. But if I was going into something else, then I'd prefer to listen to that. But yeah, if you're recording straight to microphone, then it's quite a good idea to hear the volume that's going in. So I would use this. If we go into our transmitter setting now, you have low cut. And obviously this just cuts off past a certain frequency, maybe about 100 hertz. I'm not quite sure exactly where it cuts. But once again, I would leave this off. It's quite good to leave the low end in because you can always cut it off in post afterwards anyway. And then you have transmitter gain. This is how loud each microphone is. You can turn this up and down. So if someone's speaking a bit too loud as they're going into the transmitter, then you want to turn that microphone specifically down. So this is number 1. So you can turn it down to -3. But I haven't had to do that yet. A lot of the time the transmitters seem like a really good volume anyway, but it's always good to have that option. The recording stop lock basically disables this button here on the microphone. You can push it basically to record straight to the microphone, and as you can see, it's recording here from this red light. But if you have someone speaking on stage, say, and you don't want them to accidentally press it, you can disable it here on the recording stop lock. Right now I don't have that on and I've never really needed to use it so far, but maybe in the future. Auto record is basically as soon as the microphones and the transmitter turn on, they start recording. I have never needed to use this, but you can understand why that might come in really useful. We have the vibration notifications as well. I quite like them being on. So basically that's the microphones. Every time you turn them on, they vibrate, and every time you press record, I quite like them being on. And you have LED brightness of the receiver. I haven't really needed to use that. If we jump into the settings, there's not really much in here. You can link the device, but if you have trouble linking the device, I would normally just stick it back into the box and close it and open it again, and it normally just syncs up really quick. So I would have never really needed to use that. And here we have LED brightness, and this is the brightness of the little LEDs on here. Low and then off. I actually was shooting one time in the night, and I had this under someone's jumper, and you could actually see the light through their jumper. So I can understand why you'd want to turn these off, because you don't want this green light coming through under someone's top. In the settings, you have brightness of this screen here. I just leave that to the top. And then you have language, time and date, and just your usual setup stuff, factory reset. I'm not going to go into the rest of the settings because they're just the standard stuff really. So right now, as you can see, because I've got it on stereo, it's recording left and right, both onto different channels. But if I was just using one microphone, I would normally just have this set to mono because you wouldn't really want it recording onto one channel, and I'm normally just recording by myself because I'm a loner. One last thing is the battery indicator on the box. This just indicates how much battery you have left. As you can see, I've used a quarter of the battery up. The battery on this thing literally lasts forever. I don't know how long it's meant to last or how many charges, but I've literally charged it about 3 times since having these things. I don't know how long this battery lasts for, but it just seems to last forever. But that's really it. You know, they're so simple to set up. As I mentioned, as soon as you normally open the box, there you go, it's all synced up. You just grab the microphones out, grab the receiver, and if you close the box, it will just tell you that there's only one receiver being connected now. So there you go, I can just use that one microphone. It's so simple to set up. There's really not much to think about. So that's it. I hope that's helpful, and that gets you going in your DJI microphone journey. If you have any other questions, please just comment down below and I'll try and answer them in the best way I know possible. But as for now, please like, please subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot.